I was going to say good morning, but it's afternoon. Welcome, everybody. On today's episode of the DLLS Dallas Stars podcast, we got a guy out of quarantine, but we'll talk about what happened this weekend in the Traverse City Prospect Tournament. It was really just two teams. Training camp is less than a week away. Sean is here. Luddy may or may not be drinking out of the Rugged Road cooler, and let's get the show going right now.
Empty. Oh, there's nothing in there? No. Oh, I guess we drank it all.
Where my tongue finds that.
Oh, come on. Got to save the teeth, right? He's on TV.
And in we go.
Didn't need to see that, though.
And it was like somebody shoved a rod straight up my leg and into my ass. We're brought to you again by alcohol. Yours was fascinating back in the day.
I used a crayon.
And I was like, what does that mean? I'm like,
did you find out what it meant?
The owner or the president of the company or Fox or somebody was in the truck.
Somebody's in the truck.
Yeah, well, fuck, nobody told me that. I didn't get the playbook when I came into this thing. I didn't have a list of colors and say, when you hear this, this is what's supposed to happen.
It is Monday, September 16th. This is the DLLS Dallas Stars podcast. Did I say the right number of L's? Sometimes I wonder if it just keeps on going. DLLS. Sometimes I say it fast. It sounds like 3 or 4. I'm Owen. He's Craig, a.k.a. Luds. And look who's back in studio. The guy that was on IR. He is back from his upper body injury. Sam Nestler, back from the dead. And joining us via remote, as usual, is Sean Shapiro. Speaking of which, guys, we found out this morning that the YouTube Super Chat is now an option available. And so people that watch can pay additional money to get their Super Chat put on our screen during our show. Well, if you want to donate to get Sean to come to Dallas, be on the studio, in the studio, maybe take Sam for a beer, maybe go to a game.
I can finally meet him in person.
Well, yeah. Oh, that's
Known him for
right.
3
Sean
years. I've never met him.
moved to Detroit before Sam started.
Yes.
So if you are interested in doing the Super Chat, obviously it's got to be within the realm of good taste, right? But we'll read pretty much anything. I know Luddy will, if he can read it. Make sure it's a nice big font.
I can read it. I just don't know the Super Chat deal. The call that you're talking about this morning, I went to McDonald's.
What'd you get?
And I would go through the drive-through.
McGriddle?
But I decided to walk in, because I didn't know what the hell you guys were talking about on the chat. There was a lot of technical jargon going on.
Yes, it was mostly for our producer too.
I was lost.
That's okay.
For sure.
You can play the talent diva, and that's fine.
Okay.
And you should. You play it well. But hey, speaking of which, if you actually want to throw some money at us with the Super Chat, we'll use that into a fund of Get Sean to Dallas travel fund. Obviously, Sam will be traveling to cover the Stars for not every game, but a fairly significant chunk of the regular season. So all those things are available. Sean, let's start with your weekend. You were at the Traverse City tournament. I call it a tournament, but it was really only two teams. It's different than it was in the 10 years that I've been with the Dallas Stars now. Tell me what it was like up in northern Michigan.
Yeah. So on Saturday, I shot a 103 over 18 holes, which was I was
That was
quite
the first
proud
thing you
of.
told me.
Yes.
How was your weekend? He goes, I played 27 holes.
Which is what most of the scouts did too, right, Luds? They go play golf and watch a couple hockey games.
They already know what's going to happen. This is just going through the motions.
So they're going to play golf.
Yes, of course they are.
Yeah.
See, I thought I would get into the full spirit of the thing, so I was very happy with that. On an actual hockey perspective, yeah, it's funny. It's kind of second nature to still call it a tournament, but this thing was once 8 teams. There was it lasted over 5 days. All four each team there played 4 games. You got to see all 32 NHL teams, all 31. I mean, we're in the league at the time. Every team in the NHL went and scouted it, and now it's just kind of dwindled down in size, where it's just Detroit and Dallas going to Traverse City now for this 2-game showcase and everything like that. And it's a little bit. It's because other tournaments have become larger. Like LA has 7 teams now. Buffalo has 7 teams. Those two kind of became a little. Those two have surpassed Traverse City as the big one, and a big thing part of that is cost-wise. It's ease of use of getting to LA, and it's a lot more direct flights into LA than there are to Traverse City, Michigan. Same thing with Buffalo. And so really for the Stars, the reason they're still there is because of Jim Nill's a very loyal person. And we've all talked about Jim Nill being, and his personality, how he handles things. And Nill was in Detroit when they kind of launched this thing, him and Ken Holland 20-something years ago. I think it was 98. So so only 2 teams, different experience, but still a good time to see some Stars prospect against their peers from another organization, which is what I really love about this tournament, because it's easy to be like, oh, this guy does this guy does that. But once you actually see guys against other guys from their age group, and so you don't have to see a Emil Hemming try to win battles against a Jamie Benn in camp. I get to see Emil Hemming against his equivalency in Detroit. Things like that really I liked about this tournament the most, or showcase. I got to catch myself on the wording here.
Yeah, it's not really a tournament if there's only 2 teams. And that's something I didn't want to put Brad Alberts, the Stars president and CEO, on the spot when we had him 2 weeks ago now. I can't believe that we're starting our 4th week of our show already. But Brad's the kind of guy, and we talked about the draft, the Winter Classic, World Juniors being hosted at the U18 tournament now for the 2nd time. He's a big event guy. He said as much. And I would think that if it wasn't for the loyalty that Jim shows to the Red Wings and to that tournament, which is applaudable, that Brad would be wanting to either host or be in a rotation with other teams to host this on a every 4 or 5 year period. To me, the way that the Stars rink set up down here is set up, the time of year, it seems like a no-brainer to be wanting to be involved with that. I wouldn't be surprised if that happened in the future.
My feeling is, and I think I'm going along with Sean, I believe I am, is that to me, there needs to be more teams here. You're playing the same guys all the time, regardless if it's only 2 games or 3 games. And I think of a scout standpoint, and I think of the player standpoint. There's an opportunity for players to play in these kind of tournaments where there's 4 teams, 6 teams, 8 teams, and it gives you an opportunity if you're not going to make the club that you're trying out for. The door is open for 4, 5, 6 different teams of scouts that are going to be there, and probably others, that it's an opportunity. And I agree with you. I mean, Sean, would you say if Jim Nill wasn't the general manager of the Dallas Stars, that they would probably be going someplace else, or this wouldn't even be taking place?
I mean, they would still be in one. I think all 32 teams are in something now, basically. But the Stars, if Jim wasn't the GM here, I imagine they're either hopping on that tournament that's in LA right now, or they're jumping into that Southeastern track where there's Nashville, Carolina, Florida, and Tampa do one where they all just rotate hosting. Like that to me is the inevitable kind of future for this, where Dallas will end up with that, because I'm sure Brad's perspective on this, and it makes a ton of sense, is if you can jump in with Nashville, Carolina, Florida, and Tampa, and then just get to host it every 5 years in Frisco, that's an event you get to put on. You get to play against 4 other teams, and that kind of seems like the long-term what happens with this. Detroit, I know, is going to try to they're going to try to convince Columbus to come back next year. I was told that. They're trying to kind of work that angle to try to get some more teams to come back there, but this was the gold standard because it had 8 teams. And now that other teams have become more and more, I loved playing golf there, to be clear. But there's only so much that can work from a perspective of this is a real good success. Because, like, you go through and you kind of look through these teams. Like, I would have liked to see some of these Stars prospects against another team. I would have liked to see them not get the same matchup over and over again. I would have liked to see that. Luz, you talked about guys and attracting players as free agent invites. So Detroit had 5. Detroit's 6 defensemen, 5 were free agent invites at this camp. Dallas was there. Obviously, I saw a Nashville scout. I saw a Penguin scout. I only saw 3 other scouts there. Like, there's only 3 or 4 teams scouting those guys. Those free agent invites. Who, in theory, if they took a invite with the camp in LA or Buffalo, they would have had 16 to 17 NHL teams watching them. So it is something that, sadly, just because the tournament holds a really soft spot in my heart for Traverse City, it's something where unless it gets bigger, I don't see how it keeps lasting. So,
the other thing, Sam, don't you think when you have other players at these events, it's about comparables? And when you talk to scouts and you talk to general managers, they're always using the word comparables.
Yep.
And you kind of know in your lineup, well, that guy can fit in that role here. He can be like that goal on our team.
Yeah, absolutely. And it helps to have other people around. Like, there's only so many comparables you can have when you're playing the same team. Yeah. But I think Sean, is this the longest running prospect tournament?
Yeah, this was the first one. This was this was the legacy one. Like, this is really, it was Ken Holland and Jim Nill's idea that really launched the prospect tournament in the first place. And so,
yeah, so it gives you more of a view. As Sean mentioned, it's not even all about your own guys. You can scout other people. We still use comparables nowadays in contracts, in signing players, in bringing a guy in for a PTO, whatever the situation is. It's just always better to have more exposure, whether that's to scouts, whether that's to other teams. Give your guys a chance to go play. Maybe Columbus has a much bigger team, and you get to see Dallas play against a bigger, physical, heavier forward group. It changes it all up, gives you a little bit more of a perspective before they head off to junior or whatever they're going to play. But Sean, you mentioned guys playing against their peers. We also talked about when there's someone that goes down that's even being considered an NHL option, we want them to stand out, right? So Bichsel is one of those guys.
Let's put a pin in that for a second, because I want to talk about all the guys that he saw and what they stood out for. But give us a little bit of a sleeper update.
Oh, is it sleeper time?
It's time for sleeper.
All
and
right.
then we'll do more about the Traverse City tournament.
Let's talk about sleeper then, huh?
Please.
Sleeper. Best fantasy football platform out there, period. Without a doubt. Put your ball knowledge to the test by picking whether your favorite or least favorite players will have more or less than their projected stats each week. It's not just fantasy football. They also have picks. Super simple. Even Sam can do it. Tonight, on Monday, I'm taking Devontae Smith to have over 6.5 receptions. A.J. Brown's out of the lineup. I think it's going to be big for the Eagles on Monday Night Football. Eagles are playing another NFL team.
The Atlanta Falcons.
They're not playing the Cowboys because I think Cowboys had a rough day yesterday.
Yeah, I think the
it
Cowboys
didn't go
already
well
played.
for them.
But
Packers won, by the way.
with Sleeper, the more picks you combine, the more you can win. Simple as that. All the way up to 100 times your money. Sleeper keeps you in the loop with alerts for breaking news, major injuries. They stay ahead of the game. They help you to stay ahead of the game as well. If you think you have what it takes, download the Sleeper app. Use the code DLLSstars to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. I'm looking right at the screen. I'm not even reading that right now. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in how many states?
Sleeper? Is it all 50?
25. I thought you were
they're not there
going
yet.
He's
to
not
have it.
paying attention. Should
But
ask me that
soon
question.
to be 50.
Would you have known?
Not a clue.
Check out Sleeper today.
No, I wasn't paying attention to the individual state number because I was focused on Indeed. Because I watched football yesterday, and even on, I think it was Sunday Night Football on the NBC broadcast, they had Indeed ads. I heard Indeed commercials in the game. It was some of the reads, not even just produced one, but I was hearing the broadcaster talking about it. We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global visitors every month, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And it doesn't just help you, Indeed, help you hire faster. It also gives you a higher quality. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. Join more than 3.5 million, that's 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And as you can see on our screen, right now, listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit
There you
to
go,
get
Sean.
your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/AllCity. Just go to Indeed.com/AllCity right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. DLLS. Stars. Indeed.com/AllCity. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. I almost didn't get through that one.
That was
there.
good. I'm laughing not at you, but I'm laughing because Lud's over here, even though he's got until the next segment, is already getting ready for his.
He's fired up
read.
for his read.
He's
I
looking
love
over his read over here,
as he should,
on his memorized piece of paper.
Well, Sean's got to read in the next ad block break as well.
Yeah,
wow.
We'll get to that. But you know, you Sam, I told you to put a pin in the Lian Bichsel question, but fire that away because that's a really important part of the Traverse City tournament topics.
Yeah, there's always at least one, right? One or two guys that we know are even being considered, whether that's they're on the bubble, whether they should be there. Bichsel's one of them. We talked about him potentially being ready. So Sean, what did you see from Bichsel this weekend?
Yeah, honestly, Bichsel's tournament was a bit underwhelming, or showcase, 2 games, whatever you want to call it. I mean, this to me was, he's a guy who played as many games as he did in the AHL last year, played in Sweden, would have played in an NHL playoff game this past spring if Kristanev was unable to go in game 5 or whatever, game 4, whatever it was against Dallas, where the Tanev was questionable. Bichsel would have been used in an NHL game. And it doesn't change long-term prognosis or anything like that, but he was pretty underwhelming. And on the flip side, Detroit's Nate Danielson, who's Detroit's top prospect, who was there, he dominated that tournament. And I talked to Daniel Clary from the Red Wings, who handles player development for the Red Wings, and he was talking about how they're thinking that Nate Danielson may be higher up on the depth chart going into training camp right now and might actually win a job in Detroit out of camp now. Bichsel had an opportunity to do what Matthias Janmark did a while back, to go in and really impress the Stars brass and prove he should be higher up on the list at the start of camp. And he didn't do that. He was fine. He was okay. But yeah, I just kind of wanted more from him. And I think when you're a draft pick like that and you have his pedigree, you've earned higher expectations of you. And so I think that's fair to say, you know what, he should have been better. And we'll see. I mean, I actually talked to him quite a bit about his past season. He's a really interesting character because we all know the story. We all know about how last year he left the AHL, went back to Sweden.
In December, it was the beginning of December, right?
Yes, in December, because he had the European assignment clause that was built into his contract, and he had the right to do that. But this, and I guess we can say it on this show, but basically this kid has a very much fuck everyone else's opinion view of things, where it's like he looks at, I'm going to do things that are best for me. This is a business, and to me, this path to go to Sweden that way. So, and he's really open about that, and like I kind of respect that a bit. Like I know some people didn't like the decision he made to go back to Sweden and leave the AHL team. I do respect the player standing up for himself and having a bit of the I'm gonna reach the NHL. I'm gonna do it this way. So,
and that's not the only time a Dallas Stars defenseman has done that. John Klingberg, historically, after dealing with I think it was a hip surgery or maybe it was knee. I might be getting those two mixed up. Stayed another year in Sweden when the Stars wanted him playing in the AHL, and then when he finally did come over, he only lasted about a month down in Cedar Park, and then was so good there. I think he had 10 points in 12 games or 12 and 10. I get those backwards sometimes, but he was so good he earned his call-up, and then he stuck and he was there forever. Miro played one more year in Europe and stayed longer. I think that's okay.
It's okay to an extent, right? Like Miro with happened with Heiskanen and Klingberg is different, where that was at the start of the season. That was kind of part of the plan. The Stars wanted Bichsel to spend the entire season in the AHL last year. It's one of the things where one of the reasons that story, I think Steven Meserve was the first person who broke that story, so credit to Steven. One of the first reasons that it finally even came out was because Steven sniffed it out, and the Stars were kind of trying to wait all the way through that to that December 1st or whatever the deadline was, so that Bichsel wouldn't feel pressure one way or the other to make a decision. They were trying to kind of, it's the catch more flies with honey than vinegar type deal. Like, we're not going to force you, but you're going to be happy here and everything like that. So, yes, the Stars had no issue with how it turned out, and obviously, and they lucked out a bit where he got 2 playoff runs out of it, both with Rogala in Sweden and then with Texas. But it's still something where the organization, you can't say that they didn't feel a little peeved at how he handled things when they wanted him to be the whole year in Texas there. So,
Luds, do you think it was a big deal that he went back and played in Sweden? When obviously, whether the Stars supported him publicly, and that's the right thing to do because they see him as a long-term player on this roster and the NHL roster eventually. But was it a concern at all because you know that they wanted him getting used to the North American ice sheet size, playing against AHL players? Look, there's no doubt he probably would have gotten a call-up late in the season. Remember, there was that point where they had both Derek Pouliot and Alex Petrovic called up. They played together in Boston. Then Pouliot stayed for another week. Then, of course, the playoffs. Is there any thoughts on your side of that was better or worse for Bichsel?
I think every player is different, and I think people that are managing the player, they know them probably better than others. But I think with young kids, you have to kind of give them their space and their rope. And I think when you, as a general manager and the scouts and that are involved in the organization, they watch them play enough, and they see where their weaknesses are, where their strengths are. And I think they manage them. Especially the scouting staff here. We know how good they've been here in Dallas. So I think there's healthy conversations that go along with that. I don't think that it's like, hey, it's my way and that's the only way I'm going to do it. So, and knowing Jim Nill's personality and his staff, if a player wants to do this, I think they're going to be allowed to do it. But they'll have those conversations with the right people and say, listen, we really believe he can be this or that. And if, and you guys know him and you've seen him probably play more than we have, if he needs an extra few months or whatever it may be, well, then let's do that. There may be other general managers. We're in a different time now, too. I think we're treating younger players as people differently. And back in the day, he's like, wait, you don't want to be here now? Okay, then go someplace else and play. Unless you're that special player.
Yeah.
So I think you have to manage the personalities and the people a little bit different.
I'm curious, Sean. It's not like we expected him to be in the opening night roster for Dallas, right? But what are your expectations for him at this point?
I expect him to play. I expect him to be playing 23, 20, 24 minutes a night for Texas to start the season. Probably we'll see if he has any. It was interesting. Game 2 of the tournament, they played him on the right, which was really interesting. Obviously, going to a whole topic that we've had before, talking about.
How did he look on the right?
Fine. Like it was. He didn't look out of place, but it was one of those where I think there's definitely a noteworthy part of that experiment where if you can find if in long term Bichsel can play on the right, he could be the Craig Ludwig to the Larry Robinson on playing on his offhand. So
I was awful.
He could play with.
It lasted about a half a period.
He could play with, as Sean says, Heiskanen. You notice Sean says that? I could hear him. I could listen to you talk about Heiskanen all day, Sean.
At least he's not doing the horrible pronunciation of Heiskanen that we hear so many people outside of Dallas do. I want to talk about Artuu Hyry in a minute, and we'll get into that. But one last thing on Bichsel. It's okay that he doesn't make the NHL roster, the opening night roster, right? We can be disappointed that he didn't show out more in the Traverse City tournament, showcase, whatever you want to call it, because you're hoping that it builds momentum to go into an NHL training camp, play some exhibition games, and maybe make Jim Nill make some decisions that he wasn't planning on doing. But Thomas Harley a couple years ago did not have a very good camp, and he didn't earn a spot, and he went down to the AHL and he played 60-something games, and that was okay. And so I think the expectation is, and we talked about this based on contracts last week or the week before, was that it doesn't look like Bichsel is going to make the opening night roster. Now, look, he can surprise us, and maybe he'll have an intensity level increase with the NHL camp that he didn't have in this weekend showcase. But I'm not down on Bichsel at all because of it, but I'm also disappointed because I wanted him to make us have to have some other conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's with him. It's like he might be the solution to helping this team out mid-season, right? Like it could be he could play his way in Texas, and all of a sudden he forces the issue with his play.
Rather than a trade.
I think, yeah, I think that's actually highly feasible. I think that's there, but this is as I noted, this doesn't change long-term anything. It's just it's okay to be, hey, I wanted to see more. It's okay to say that. I mean, the other on the flip side, right? This was the first time to kind of get to where Sam was going before. An actual battle in camp that is open is we don't know. Like you look at the Stars roster and you pencil it out. Everyone's got 12 guys, 12 forwards that they figured out, right? It's 12. It's the same 12 for everyone. There's got to be a 13th forward, and one of the kind of the launching points, or if you see Artuu Hyry make the roster out of training camp, this is where it starts for him. Like he's a Finnish forward. Talked to Jim about it. He compared him to Janmark. He compared him to Janmark coming out of training camp out of Traverse City, which is notable because Matthias Janmark took Traverse City and turned it into a full-time NHL job. So that's not saying Hyry is a lock to make the team or anything like that, but he's someone who I think when you've been prognosticating and going through and figuring out these lineups, he's a name that hasn't been talked about enough. And
well, let's do a whole segment about him because this is the exciting part of this weekend. But before we do, we'll do that in just a minute. It's time for our very own Rugged Road read featuring Luds.
And by the way, Rugged Road is empty right now. I think we're going to have to fix that.
Well, you had a big part in why it was empty.
That Razor had more to do with
that. Didn't leave anything for me. Eh?
Rugged Road is dedicated to creating innovative and durable outdoor gear for adventurers who demand the best. Products are designed with the highest quality materials and craftsmanship, ensuring they perform in the toughest conditions. Rugged Road gear is built to accompany you on every adventure. One of the most unique features of Rugged Road coolers is their ability to always float upright. Rugged Road coolers are incredibly light, making them easy to transport on any trip without compromising on performance. They're not that light when you got a 2.4 Molson bottles in there, though, as we know, which didn't last very long. Their coolers are built to last, ensuring they can keep up with any adventure. The coolers are guaranteed to keep their contents cool for up to 7 days. So gear up for your next adventure with Rugged Road coolers, reliable, durable, and built to be used. Rugged Road is your ultimate outdoor companion. Head to ruggedroadoutdoors.com and use code DLLS for 10% off. Flawless.
That was nice.
Got that? Flawless.
Yeah.
Memorized and flawless.
Memorized.
Flawless.
That was
you know what memorized means?
Laughing at you today.
I don't know if he knows what memorized means.
Memorized means I got here in time. I knew there was a show today, and it all starts there.
Now it's Sean's turn.
You know, I know it's my turn. And you interrupted my seamless transition, Owen. So this is on
my
you now.
apologies. I'm really good at killing segues.
What if I told you?
What if I told you, Sean?
Yeah. Well, what if I told you when you're at your tailgate with that Rugged Road cooler, you needed to look like the best and most dedicated fan around? Well, there is a place where you can get a great deal on hoodies, shoes, signs, bobbleheads, jackets, beachwear, as we've talked about quite a bit. Yep, that place is pronounced FOCO. FOCO. And you right now can get 10% off on using our special code DLLS10, which should be in this spot on the screen.
No, we don't have one. All we have is the picture of the swim trunks. You can bring us the swim
sleep
trunks.
at the wheel. Producers
you
sleep
can
at
always
the
bring up
wheel.
the swim trunk.
There we go.
Wait,
I
we don't
do
have
like
one.
this.
You notice the
like the
producer doesn't have
spinning
a
on the
microphone on this chair? So he has to yell at us from the other room. He likes the podcast better.
But you can get 10% off on wonderful items from FOCO, like those swim trucks, using our code again, DLLS10, 10% off. And I believe I've heard that they've even done a nice job giving you guys some nice set decorations as well. So I hope you're all enjoying the work FOCO's done for you.
Can't wait for the day we're all wearing those shorts up here.
The shorts and then the Snuggies too.
Rugged Road cooler right in front of us.
We're gonna have a day. We're gonna have a
tree.
day where we're just using all of the things. We're
all
calling people on Indeed trying to hire them. We got the Rugged Road. We got Sleeper right here.
We'll all be
I
wearing
don't know how
our
you
Shady
show
Rays.
Sleeper.
I've been sleeping for the first part of the show, so
Yeah.
Speed it up.
We could do Sam could do a like a Dallas Stars holiday gift guide, showing different things.
Oh, I like that.
I like that. All right, Lads, let's talk about a finish forward then.
Artuu Hyry. Sean, you got the pronunciation confirmed from the player himself. Why are you and everybody? Why should they be excited about this kid heading into training camp?
Well, I mean, it's to be fair, we're talking about 13th forward battle and making the NHL roster. We're not talking about someone who's going to jump in and take a spot from one of those 12 we talked about. So let's quickly just make sure we're using an honest line to where things start. But
do you think it's a guarantee that Colin Blackwell is in that 12 spot?
Yes.
Yeah. So, but you need 13, right? Unless the cap
correct.
is such that they have to. But I feel like they're going to have a 13th forward, and there's actually real competition, because I don't think, like last year, it pretty much felt like contractually those 13 players were already decided. This year, there are multiple options.
Yeah, and Hyry comes in, and he played on the Finnish national team in the spring. First time he played played for their international team, and that's not an easy team to make. And he's Kiviranta-esque in the way where he takes he's a smart player, takes a lot of routes. I think one of the first notes I wrote was he's very Hyry Finnish in the way where, like, you get a lot of these Finnish players who come over, play the right way, because if you're going to make the Finnish national team, that's the way Hyry needs you to play.
Yeah.
And he's also bigger too. That's the thing. Where like Kiviranta was a little bit more spry. Hyry he's like listed at 6'2", 215, and when I talked to him, like, he towered over me. And he plays with more grit. He plays a little bit more, whatever other hockey cliche you want to use, more jam, goes to the corners, all that junk. You can use all those terms, but he brings a bit of that with all of the. I really like the way he defends. I really like the way he understands routes. I like the way that he works on the forecheck. And throughout this tournament, him and Emil Hemming were really the only stars that were able to really create consistently. And part of it was kind of the classic turning offensive pressure on the forecheck into offensive chances once you get the puck back. And that's the way the Stars want to play, right? That's the way the Stars want to play. So if Hyry is going to fit into the NHL roster, he's going to fit on a fourth line. He's going to do that well. And he's going to be right in that mix. And Jim told me as much, that he's going to be in that mix with a Matt A. Blumel, a Cole Lind, a couple other names there too, that are all going to be kind of fighting for that opportunity. And for all of those guys, the battle's going to be when that injury happens, and when you get into the lineup, take advantage of your window of opportunity.
Yeah, and it doesn't hurt that he's 23, right? He's played in Liga for 3 seasons. He played at the World Championships. He's a more mature person. We're not talking about a 17, 18-year-old kid that's just coming in and who knows what's going to happen. He's
and
played
as exciting as Emil Hemming is, because he's young and he's going to go play in the OHL, like he'll be at camp and maybe get a couple NHL preseason games. I don't think that he is, that anyone's really expecting him to challenge for an NHL lineup spot, whereas I think Hyry really at that age has that chance.
Yeah, I mean, Sean just said he's a big guy. He's more mature. He's played against that competition. It'll just be really interesting to see him come out of camp. And I don't know if you guys know, the Stars like Finnish players. Are you guys know that? So
they have some pretty good scouting, in Finland right now.
Yari does a great job bringing players to maybe Jim Nill's attention that they would have otherwise not seen. And this feels like one of those guys. And he's undrafted. He has a chance to make some noise, and I think that I think it's just an interesting player to watch here.
Anytime Jere Lehtinen is making a phone call and saying you need to take a look at this player, you don't need any other endorsement. I mean, if you didn't have the opportunity to watch Let's Play, and he obviously sees R2D2 here play more often than anybody else, that he has the details, and Let's was a detailed player. Won 3 Selkies? I think Let's won 2 or 3.
I feel like he should have won more.
Yeah, but again, he wasn't. We'll go into that again, how rules have changed. But I think when Let's calls you up and says this, he's a guy that watches those kind of habits that players have, and he knows probably by recommending a player like this, number one is his credibility isn't on the line because he hasn't strayed anybody the wrong way anytime he's told Jim or anybody else about a player. but you know that you can take a player like that and you can plunk him in a game. You might be able to plunk him in the playoffs and know what you're going to get with him right off the bat. So I don't think there's any bigger or better source coming from Hyry that you're going to go, well, I don't know. We need more reference and recommendations.
Yeah, and he's on a 2-year entry-level contract. Sean, I'm sure you're well aware of this, but we just discovered it for the first time today that if you're 18 to 21 years old, you can sign a 3-year entry-level contract. 22 to 23, you sign a 2-year contract. 24, you sign a 1-year contract, and then 25 plus, there's no limit. So we were trying to figure out what the limits were for entry-level contracts. That's why Hyry was on a 2-year contract, for anyone who doesn't know. I feel like Sean's looking at me. He probably knew that already.
He's looking at you going, yeah, settle down, Junior. I got this. Well, look at the depth chart, guys, about this and why we're talking about this 12th/13th forward. We could have a whole debate, and probably should, again, because we talked about who's going to play with Hintz and Robertson, and the consensus sort of feels like either Wyatt Johnston or Logan Stankoven are the two front runners to replace Joe Pavelski on that line. Again, on that line is important because you're not replacing Joe Pavelski. We've ring the bell.
Yeah,
0 days again, John.
Joe Pavelski again.
We keep remembering him. And for good reason, right? The season hasn't started, and we're talking about there's the ding. Number of days since the last time Joe Pavelski was mentioned on this podcast. We're back at 0. But so you have either Johnston or Stankoven on the top line. I don't think you mess with Marchment, Duchesne, and Seguin. I think they're better together. Sean, you and I have had this conversation multiple times. They're better than the sum of their parts. Together they complement each other in a way that when you split them up, sometimes it's less. Now, Seguin was really good filling in for Hintz at the center at the top line last year at times. But the third line, you have either Ben, Bork, and Stankoven, or maybe you have Ben, Johnston, and Bork in some regard. And there's, again, jury is out on Maverick Bork. Can he be that top 9 guy? It seems like everybody thinks he can, but he's still got to prove it. And then Dodonov, Steele, and Blackwell. And I'm not trying to disparage Colin Blackwell by questioning whether he's in the top 12 because he's a 31-year-old. He played for Chicago last year. My only concern, guys, and Sean, I'll start with you on this. Blackwell only played 44 games at age 30 with the Chicago Blackhawks. He's 235 career NHL games. He's experienced. He knows how to play. It's just a question of, is that fair to ask about durability with him because he plays a hard game?
Yeah, I mean, it's fair. It's definitely a thing. I mean, you asked about Blackwell before, and the reason I had the instant no answer of him, we were like, oh, is there anyone taking his spot? And the answer was no, is I've told people this before, but I'll bring this up on the show. One of the tells Jim Nill has is how press releases are worded. If there is a quote from Jim Nill in the press release, Jim is planning on that player on the NHL roster. So let's go back. Most recent signing I think the Stars made that was a free agent was Magnus Hellberg. There was no quote about Magnus Hellberg from Jim Nill in the press release. I go back to July 2nd, third graph from Jim Nill in the press release. Colin is a skilled forward who adds depth and experience to our lineup. We're looking forward to him joining us for the upcoming season. That is the tell. If you are ever looking for the Jim Nill tell of the line for is he on the NHL roster or not, is there a quote in the press release? And
That's
Colin Blackwell
hilarious.
has a quote. So,
Craig Smith was really good for this team last year. Is it just
and he had a quote. Craig Smith had a quote in his press release when they signed him.
What I'm saying is that Blackwell is on the NHL minimum, $775K for his contract AAV. Luddy, would you have liked to see Craig Smith back at 1 or 1.25?
Yes. That enough?
Yeah.
Yes, 100%.
So
thought he was great.
But is saving
Effective.
$500,000
Know what you get, competitive. How many times we've seen him fight when stepping in for teammates. So I was very surprised. But again, we're not going to sit here and doubt what these guys do upstairs. And there was a reason why they saw, somebody, whether it's age or whatever it may be. But yeah, I thought Craig Smith was a great player for this club in the role that he was in.
This feels like, maybe it's just me, but this feels like one of the rare seasons where I almost can see Jim Nill replacing what they lost. Like exactly. Like he talked about Dumbo.
You mean like for like?
Yeah, like they lose Hakanpää, right? Huge penalty killer, blocks a lot of shots, and he talks about Lyubushkin and Dumba being people that can fill that role. We talked about Suter leaving, people can fill that role. This is a similar situation where I feel like Colin Blackwell, he obviously believes he's capable of not replacing Craig Smith, but of playing that role for less money.
It's about time, and I want to go back into my little history. I was Sean. I was in it was Dallas here, and I went to Bob Gainey's house with all the scouts. And again, years ago, they had their meetings, and I didn't say shit. I was just sitting in the back of the room, my first time ever doing that. And I had a question, and I just asked them all, how do you draft your players? And what do you look for, blah, blah, blah. And Timmy at the time, who was our head scout at the time, said, well, we take the best player available. And I said, okay. And I kept my mouth shut. And about 10 minutes later, Gainey goes, hang on a second. And he says, Luds, why did you ask that? And to myself, I went, oh, shit. Like, I didn't want to get up in front of these guys that know way more than me than selecting younger players. And I said, my opinion is, if I have to give one, is that Derian Hatcher is at this age right now, and he's got a bad knee. Matt Tkachuk has this issue, and he's at this age right now. And I'm like, if we have a system and a philosophy that we believe in here, aren't we trying to find the next Derian? Which is not easy, but here's the next Matty, or here's the next Sean Chamber or Craig Ludwig in the roles that they played in, and we believe just younger. And so that's the way that I look at it, and I think that's what's going on here. Just to what you just said.
Yep.
With free agency.
We had this here. He's this age. Do we have the next Craig Smith that we believe in? I don't know that answer, but that's the way when you have a philosophy, an organizational philosophy, and you have success, then I don't know why you change from
So here's the reason why I think he's left the door open, and I could be wrong, but just my hunch. We have Matej Blumel, you have Artuu Hyry, you have Cole Lind, who had a very good year with AHL Coachella last year. You have Oscar Beck, a draft pick that's had a couple years in the AHL now. And look, there's other guys. There's Antonio Stranges and Semenov, and I could list all these guys that are on their depth of prospects. But that's enough guys that somebody should, out of this training camp, rise to fill that spot, rather than signing somebody from the outside or maybe bringing back a Craig Smith. And so you're getting a guy a little bit cheaper.
And it gives the guy room to grow.
Yes.
It may be as simple as that. As $250,000 we save here, or $350,000.
I think it is because they signed Blackwell for $775,000.
Well, we got to get Thomas Harley signed, and that little bit's going to get.
And they
him
traded
signed
Radek Faksa for it too, to open up that cap space, saying we've got younger guys that can come play on the fourth line.
Hopefully.
I do too. I think we should have that conversation later about draft, because I think filling needs in free agency on the lower end of the cost is a good idea to fill those gaps, but it's harder to do when you draft. And there are times where taking best available and just stockpiling the best talent, that's a debate we can have about that. Yeah. But we have to talk about DLLS really quickly here, because look, we really appreciate everybody's support. Every week of the first 3 weeks, we've been getting information from our general manager saying the numbers are going up, the amount of followers, the subscribers, the interactions. Our show with Razor last Friday was our most watched live show yet, as you would expect. Big guest, a lot of fun.
Razor's going to love to hear
No
that.
Sean, no Sam. That's a positive for you guys,
right?
We just found,
It doubled by John, our producer, saying we had by double.
We found the recipe.
I think I just got to leave.
We trimmed the fat, so to speak, and then brought in a big guest. Sorry, Sean. Yep, there goes Sean. And that look, that's really good. We're still in our first month of broadcasting DLS Dallas Stars shows. Look, there's Sean.
Oh, he got a cartoon.
See, he's already there.
Oh, I didn't even. I got a cartoon.
And in with that, we're a company that is dedicated to covering the Dallas Stars every single day, all the games. Sean went to Traverse City. Sam is going to be traveling. He and I will be at training camp. But Luds might even pop up in Frisco and watch some of the skates. We'll see. I'm not telling you what your schedule is. I'm just saying it's available. And we're going to be covering and watching these games. So if you want to support us, become a diehard. These guys write some great stuff, and some of it's behind the diehard paywall. Our Discord, we use some questions for Luddy. We use some questions for Razor. You can get T-shirts and merchandise. AllDLLS.com is great stuff there. Anything you guys want to add about training camp? We'll talk about training camp all week, but the conversation about the 13th forward, the Traverse City tournament, before we go on to some NHL news and notes.
I want to make one PSA here. Lines that are used in training camp are not necessarily lines
Especially
they're
the
going
first
to
couple
use.
days.
I know we're gonna tweet them out, like we're gonna talk about them, but just so all fans know, when I say that this line is these three players, that doesn't mean, oh man, I can't believe Stankoven's on the fourth line all season. Like it, just take it with a grain of salt. That's my PSA for training
Bloody,
camp.
what about you? What are you looking
I will
at?
say this to add to that. Lines in the first 10 games of the regular season or even the 20 are not going to be the same lines in the last 20. It's just the way it is. You look for chemistry. When you guys are talking about lines, my opinion is you end up finding two guys that play together well, like say it's Roope and Robertson, and then you find the third guy that can complement those two guys.
Look at our bobbleheads
right here.
there.
Who's going to be
But
right here?
That's,
Who's the
that's
third
a
line?
big Ken Hitchcock thing. He talks about pairs all the time.
Yeah.
Not lines, but duos. These guys play well together. We'll find someone to plug in on that duo.
Hall & Oates.
Yep. All right. So, Sean, anything you want to add before we go on to Sidney Crosby?
Lines are like stray pets. Only name them if they last more. If they're there for more than a year.
Wow.
There you go. So
That's beautiful.
we may have to come up with a new line name for
and also Miro Heiskanen.
Heiskanen. You want to shush it?
That's
now?
what he does.
Well,
I like it.
I don't
I'm gonna
ever
start
trust
doing
a
it.
writer for pronunciation.
I trust Sean
All
for,
they-
You don't
for
even
all
trust
of
the
it.
player. How many times have we heard
so
players
many
change
times.
their names?
Yeah.
Like they tell you what it is at one press conference, and then a year later it's a different
So
name.
you don't trust the GM or the coach because they always butcher them, and that's
Oh,
fine.
yeah.
But you definitely don't trust a writer because Sean has said to me before, all I have to do is spell it right in written form. I don't have.
No, that
it's
was-
the
that was-
broadcasters that have to get
I
it
mean-
verbally correct. So trust Lutz.
Okay, to
He
be
knows
fair,
how to say it.
okay. To be fair, I said that at a time I wasn't doing 2 shows a week for the wonderful listeners at DLLS. Let's
Are you
be
stepping
clear,
up your
this
game
was-
this year?
I've stepped my game up for years now. This
He
is an
already
old
has.
statement.
He told me how to say.
Don't make me
Artuu
bring up Cole Yulee.
Hyry.
When you get to the top of the mountain, you can't go any higher.
Good
Sean's,
point.
Sean's done it. He's at the peak.
The
What do you
pinnacle.
call that?
The pinnacle.
Precipice.
The precipice.
No,
That's on the edge of falling over.
Is that where it is?
Yeah.
Well, he's on the. When you get to the top of the mountain, you can only fall over.
That's true. There's nowhere to go but down.
Okay, so
Unless you get
kinda
picked up
use
by
it-
a helicopter.
which would be my luck.
That'd be cool, eh?
Yeah, that'd be awesome. That's a way to go.
Yeah.
So
That would be Jesus.
I was driving downtown this morning. I was actually talking to Sean on the phone while you guys were having your conversation, and Sidney Crosby signed a new deal. The Penguins captain and big important player for 20 seasons now. 2-year deal. Of course, he kept the 87 part of it, $8.7 million, which based on how he's playing, right? He's 35, or excuse me. Sorry, he's 37.
Yeah.
Is he 37?
Yeah, he's 37. Turned 37, and I was just looking to double check it. Turned 37 on August 7th. He had 94 points last year.
Not
He's
bad for
still
an old
at
man.
the top of his game. He's not a guy that's, he had 75.
He's
60.
probably going to go to the Hall of Fame.
I would think so.
I would think so.
He's already won Stanley Cups.
Yeah.
Sean,
I don't think
Sean
he wants to
loves the
play
Hall of Fame.
forever, but I think
Oh,
that,
Jesus.
I was listening to Elliot Friedman talk up to him. He did an interview with Crosby last week, and the contract hadn't been announced yet because it was just announced
in
today.
Vegas.
I think it was in Vegas. And
Yep.
Crosby had said a few years ago, that he didn't see himself playing past 40. Well, he kind of capitulated that a little bit and said, feel pretty good right now. We'll see.
Yeah.
Could you see Crosby playing more than 3 years?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
It's surprising, and then it's not surprising to me, I guess. Which means I should have not said anything just now. Is that he signs for 2 years at 8.7, which is his number, as we all know. Is he that good of a human being saying, I don't want to sign past 2 years because I don't know if I don't want to be that guy when you know it's time to go and I'm making a contract and
Isn't
I don't
that what Joe
deserve it?
Pavelski did?
Yeah, like
Ding.
avoiding the issue
Yeah.
that we talk about.
Or
John was so happy to hit that button again.
Or is he doing the organizational right thing to do right now? And at the end of the second year, he may be able to go to another team that would probably want him to win a Stanley Cup.
Well, there's a softball for you, Luds.
Well-
what's most important to Sidney Crosby right now at 37?
He's got plenty of money. He's
Right.
got Stanley Cups. He's going to be in the top 5
But
all time probably.
does he wanna win?
Anything
Does he have
more important?
Does he have
Is
2 or
anything
3
more
cups?
important than winning?
He's got 3. I believe.
Got 3, right?
I believe he's got 3.
I believe he has 3.
I don't know. Sean was
yeah, that's what I thought.
Sean, which is
so
great
is
for
it
our video,
4?
but not for our audio. He held up 3 fingers.
Or behind the scenes, Sean, did he sign a 2-year deal knowing that he's got a 5+ deal to stay with the organization after he's done, if he wants to be done? Doesn't he just want to go out on his own term? Doesn't he deserve? If there's a player in today's day that's still playing that deserves to go out on his own terms, it's him.
Yeah, I mean, basically the whole thing we heard was, I think they started, these conversations been going on for 5 or 6 months, and basically the only thing that was really negotiated between Crosby's agent, I believe it's Pat Brisson, and management in Pittsburgh, Kyle Dubas, was it really came down to term.
Yep.
It was one of those things where the last thing I saw on the story was that Crosby was interested in something maybe 3 or 4 years, and the Penguins were actually the ones that were a little bit closer to the 2-year term. So that's something that I read that from Elliot, I think, right before we got on this show. So he's a guy who, right, once he's like his former not roommate, his former landlord, Mario, he's going to play his whole career for the Penguins. He's going to do that. He's going to be a big part. Like, I would imagine there'll be, as Lud said, there'll probably be some nice job. They'll figure out a fun title for it once he finishes his playing career, and he'll still be there.
My favorite is the ambassador of fun.
He'll just be Sidney Crosby. Sidney Crosby.
That's right. That'll be his title.
Yes. The thing that's interesting to me is just look at Crosby's career, right? And obviously it's superstition or whatever, just with that number, right? How much money have the Penguins saved over the years with this guy's infatuation with having his cap hit match his jersey number?
Well,
I mean,
he signed a 12-year deal, which they can't even do legally nowadays because of the change in CBA. But Sean, Luddy talked about him making money. He's made $150 million in career earnings.
What's interesting is, like Sean just said, I saw a graph. I can't remember where I saw it this morning, that like when you look at the percentage of players for the highest paid players in the team, they're going up to 14, 15% of the team's salary cap. Crosby has just consistently been going down and staying around 10%, 9% of that team's salary.
Look at his contract, $850 AAV, $850,000 in his entry-level deal from 05 through 08. From the 08-09 season to today, he has made 8.7. Think about that. 8.7.
What did Draisaitl just sign for?
Oh, Jesus. Well, but including this year, it was going to be somewhere around $190 million.
Yeah.
Including this year. That'd be his 8th year, I think.
This is Crosby's last year of his current 12-year deal, and then the extension to 2 years. That puts him to 40.
Yeah.
Think he'll play beyond that?
I think he can, but
I think it depends on how the team is
physically feels.
and how the team is.
I also wonder, is he that kind of person that if he's not playing well, and let's just say, because the number, Sean, I think they were throwing around earlier in the summer was like 10 million. That was kind of the ballpark that they figured that he was going to get. Does he want to sign a 3-year deal, be making 10 million or even 8.7 again, and not live up to the contract? Is he that kind of a human being that says, you know what, I'm not worth this kind of money right now? He mentioned
something about if he decided he wanted to walk away, he didn't want to put anything on the Penguins of dead cap hit money or he didn't want to cause any trouble. And I think part of you mentioned, Luds, is he that great of a guy? I think to some extent for sure, but I also think because he's made so much, it's like what we just saw with the Stars do with Joe Pavelski, is they were on 1-year deal terms because he's happy where he wants to be. They weren't worried about him walking away to another team. It was more about, let's do it a year at a time and see how I feel when that is done. I wouldn't be surprised if after this next extension of Crosby, he doesn't go out and sign a 1-year deal with the Penguins again.
It has to be 1 year after that.
There's been a handful of players over my history and I played with a couple of them, where you were like, and they went to different teams. Man, I wish you'd have just retired. Only because you were such a great player. Go out. I don't know, but I'm assuming you don't need the money. It's not about that. But that it's hard to walk away. There's no question about that. But sometimes you're kind of remembered for your last performance kind of thing. And maybe he just doesn't want that to ever have to happen. And it's nice having the luxury knowing that you don't need another paycheck coming in. And you can say you can go. And it's not that I just think that there's something not behind the scenes. I just think, Sid, we know you're a lifer here in Pittsburgh. and you're going to be the new Mario when we're done.
Yeah,
Or maybe
right.
that's Mario saying it. You know, who knows?
Yeah.
You know, but we're going to
He's
be
a
on
GM
the same
in the
session.
waiting,
Yeah, and that
but he's
could
still
be.
playing.
Because the other guy might not be safe there. I mean, he's not doing a bang-up job right now.
He's the
either,
Trevor
so-
Linden of the Penguins.
You know, Sean, you mentioned how much did they save? They have less than $1 million in projected cap space right now, the Penguins. And if he was making what you would say would be fair market value, they would have to jettison one or two other players on their current roster just to be under the cap.
He has been, the other thing, like, too, like, he's made, like I say, like, they've saved money on his market value. But the other thing is, no one has made as much money playing pro hockey as Sidney Crosby. He's made $152 million in his career, which is the highest NHL career earning in NHL history. That's the highest, like, over the course of a career. Already paid out. Obviously not accounting for what Draisaitl will probably make with the deal and everything like that. Already paid out money. Actually, this is interesting. Do you guys, Owen might have the list right there, so who knows? But, like,
I'm ready
if
for
you had to guess, who were the top 5 paid players in NHL history, they were talking about career earnings. Like, who else do you think would be on that list?
Ooh, see, I don't have that. I can pull it up, but I won't.
Erik
cheat.
Karlsson.
Well, see, 'cause that's an interesting question because when Luddy played with the Stars, there was no salary cap. So there was a time where
There
guys
was for me.
well, for certain players. But you guys, if you wanted a player, you go out and get Brett Hull. You didn't care about whether it would fit under the cap.
Yeah, you use the term
And
buy
so,
Brett Hull.
if I'm not mistaken, guys were making more, and then the whole salary dropped.
Is it
It
recent,
went
Sean?
down and started to build up.
So,
Is that, am I right?
On this list, so for the top 5, one of them played against Lutz. Only one played against Lutz. And then the other three in the top 5, because you guys know Crosby. The other 3 in the top 5 are all technically on NHL rosters right now, but one is still getting paid to not play hockey right now.
Oh, not
Is it
getting
not?
played for
Is
not
it
playing
Rick
hockey.
DiPietro still getting paid,
No, it's not Rick DiPietro.
or
All
is
right.
it Shea Weber?
Shea Weber, Shea Weber's 5.
Yeah.
Shea Weber, $130 million is the 5th most made in a career.
Well, we just said
Earnings-wise.
Crosby's made 150, so he's on there.
So
It's
there's
gotta be
Oh,
Wes
yeah, no,
Ryan Suter
I
going to make that list from getting
Is
paid?
it
Yeah, Ovechkin's 2 at $150 million.
Oh, it's close.
It got to be McDavid, right?
Not
or has he not
made-
played long enough yet?
Not played long enough yet.
Okay. Anybody want to guess, or should we have Sean? Give
Sean,
us-
what's the older one? What's the one that played against Leds?
Yager.
Yaromir Yager. Well, he played forever.
Yager.
Is he still playing?
Played against Leds and
He-
played for the Stars when I was in college.
Yeah.
Played
Technically
for a long
still
time, and he's still playing.
played for Kladno, so his Hall of Fame. We talk about Hall of Fame all the time in this show, to my chagrin. But he is now.
He's going to
his
do
Hall
it
of
once
Fame
a
is now
year
been
just to keep the Hall of Fame kicking him down the curve.
Yeah, exactly. That's what he's going to do. So, and then the other one, just in Crosby, is Malkin. Malkin's made the 3rd most amount of money in an NHL career, $441 million in his career. So,
Can I just say one
Sid's
thing? I
done
know
well
you
for
guys,
himself.
you guys are going to give me crap because whenever I mention age, you give me crap. But
Well, you just said you were in college,
But-
I was working for the Texas Stars when Yager played for the Dallas Stars.
I was in the stands.
Luddy
at the-
was working for the TV
at the
broadcast.
Honda Center in Anaheim watching that Yager team. But the fact that we're talking about Sidney Crosby being towards the end of his career makes me feel so old, because maybe it's just because that was like my prime of hockey when
the
Ovechkin
young
and
guy
Crosby.
talking about
But
feeling
when
old,
Ovechkin and
lads.
Crosby came in, that was like the prime of those two guys that were going to be around forever, and now they have. That's all I'm saying. It's just shocking
You
to
know
think
what
that they're
makes
at
you
the end of
feel
their
older is
career.
when you see guys that you either idolized or you played with whose kids are now playing professionally. Not even just getting drafted, but playing, right? Shane Doan's kid
Yep.
played last year with the Coyotes, and you're going, wow, that'll make you feel older.
Why are we talking about old?
Because Sam brought it up. Because the youngest guy on
I
our
was
show
having a
brought
good
up,
day over here, and now it's gotten shitty where we're talking about the guys that are making the most money in history, and a guy over here that's 30. What are you now? 34?
32.
32.
even better. Yeah, whining about feeling old.
Oh.
I wasn't whining. It was just a statement. Ovechkin was my guy when he came into the league, and I picked him. It was the Crosby versus Ovechkin, right? Most people, young kids, had to pick. I picked Ovechkin. He had a pretty successful career, but all I'm saying is it's just wild that they've been playing for
Luds,
that
I'm going
long.
to throw a quick question. We should do a whole Ludscapades about salary because I think it's really changed.
Well, you're going to have to get 2 of them rugged road coolers then.
Probably.
Okay.
But we can pull that off. But was there anybody from when you were playing that their contract was a big deal that really stood out that it pops in your head right away?
Yeah, Beaker. I go when Pat Verbeek got his deal, and the only reason it sticks out.
Well, give us the details that you remember because I don't.
Well,
the
the only detail I remember when Beaker signed, and Sean, you can quick pull it up. So Beaker came in, sat down next to me and he had just signed it like 3 days before. We were going out for practice. And
This
Beaker
is in Dallas, right?
Yeah, this is in Dallas.
Yep.
Beaker sits down and he goes, "Lads, guess what?" I said, "What, Beaker?" And he says, "I just went out and bought a brand new Suburban, and I bought a brand new fishing boat." And he told me what they costed, and there was something else he bought. And he said, "And I still got $50,000 left over from my next paycheck." Next paycheck.
Next paycheck.
Next paycheck. Not for the year.
Oh,
so
good
when he
grief.
signed like Sean, what did he sign? A 4 or 5 year deal in Dallas here?
This in 96 we talking about?
Yeah.
Was this around 96? Yeah. So he signed a 3-year deal for $9.3 million that year.
So
yeah,
that was what?
Yeah,
3 by 3?
3 by 9. 3 by
9 million
3.1.
per year by 3, so 27 million
No,
total.
no. 9 million total.
Total.
9
But in
million
96, that was a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they're getting a
Yes,
couple hundred
yeah.
grand a paycheck.
Yeah,
You know. and
which isn't too shabby.
he went and
He
spent
also had
$150,000
another-
on a boat
And that's, so
repair.
that's $3 million a year.
Yeah.
That's
And he should be in the Hall of Fame, by the way.
that's
We're going to start another
5.7.
counter, not the Joe Pavelski one, where Ludwig is talking about Pat Verbeek should be in the Hall of Fame.
Well,
there you
between
go.
him and Hatcher,
Yep.
you got 2 going.
Yeah.
Hatcher's going to have I don't know.
other
if
thing-
Hatcher's
Hatcher was Sean's mostly.
Oh, was that Sean more than
Yes,
Bud?
yes. Yeah.
Okay. But
yeah,
so
yeah.
you're talking
Hatcher's
about this money
Hatcher's
for
number should be
Verbeek,
retired.
and it's 5.7 million.
Sorry, Sean. You should know you can't get in when you know this guy over here is talking.
I do.
Yeah.
I interrupt a lot. But think about that. Verbeek signed a big deal, and it's 5.7 million less per year than what Crosby's just signed.
Yeah, but it was in 96.
96. Yeah, that's
96.
almost 30 years ago now.
It was
The other-
good money at the time for you know what they said Beaker was. I mean, what is Marchand making? I mean, is he making 10, 12 million in Boston?
Oh, I can
How
look
quick
that
can you
up.
pull that
10,
up?
is it?
Well, this is always
what
good
is
when
it?
it's a
This
race.
is where
of
you
it.
should have that. What's that?
Six. He's only
Puckpedia.
Marchand's at
Sure what
6.1.
they're
6 point. He's at
You don't know, do you? You probably don't
6.12
How
million.
is
for
he
Marchand.
making only
Wheel of Fortune.
6?
No,
How is he making only 6?
Well, I mean,
they play that game.
Price is right.
it's,
Well, that's the guy that goes over the line.
6.12.
yeah, he's in his 8th
6.125
year of 8,
million.
isn't he?
We're
Yeah.
having our own conversation over here, aren't we?
Well, it's
Yeah.
fun because
Yeah,
I
you
can't
guys-
tell how much they can hear us
the
or
people
not.
listening to this later on their favorite audio platform hears all of this going. It's just one big conglomeration.
Yeah.
So Marchand's only at 6.1 in his 8th year of his
Interesting.
contract.
What? That's it?
That's it. That's what I said.
Yeah.
Pasta just is
The,
at year 2 of 11.25.
I
He's
did
getting
just
screwed.
learn something about. Yeah, I did just learn something about Verbeek as we were looking this up that I didn't know, which now makes us interested. So I'm apparently his deal that he signed with the Stars at the time actually had deferred money on it. When we talked all about the Seth Jarvis deal recently and the deferred money and the cap implications and everything like that. So, I learned that in the last 5 minutes that Pat Verbeek's deal with the Stars in 96, 97.
This
had
is
a
an
decent amount of deferred
informational
income.
Isn't that
podcast
nice
here.
when we learn
Yeah.
stuff too?
It
Like
is.
I learned something
Yeah.
new this
Learned
morning.
about-
Owen's the only one
Yeah.
that thinks he knows everything.
No,
the rest
that's
of
not
us
true
are
at
still
all.
learning.
Yeah.
Let's take this away and see what he knows.
Yeah.
Listen, you take yours away too, and then try to bring
it's
up your
a great
notes,
point.
right? Yeah.
You can take mine away.
Lutz doesn't even have his on.
Lud's computer has a piece of paper taped to the front of it.
It might be dead.
It's literally a backstop.
when you
for
study the
his
game
paper.
24/7, you don't need all this crap that
It's
you
true.
guys got
You
here.
live and breathe it. I'll give you that.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I like to know what's going on.
All right, Lighty, we'll let you end the show then. Training camp starts Thursday. They announced that the first couple of skates will be Thursday, Friday, and then they have their first preseason game Saturday. The first 2 skates are open to the public up at the Comerica Center in Frisco. You do have to reach out through the team. So go to the Dallas Stars website if you want tickets. They're free, but you have to get tickets. Usually for practices, you can just show up. But I think they're expecting a pretty decent crowd on the Comerica Center ice, where that's the arena side, not the practice
Where do
rink
we
side.
hang out there? Because I'm so used to the other rink where we hang out in that little.
We'll get to
Is
that.
that
We'll
this
talk.
weekend?
I'm just trying
That's
to
this,
tell people where to
Thursday,
find
Friday,
us. You know,
and then Saturday's their first game.
Do you know where I'm going to be?
having a beer somewhere in
I'm gonna-
Wisconsin.
Yeah, I'll be having a beer, but I'll be in the home of Sidney Crosby.
Oh, it's
I'll be in
going to Pittsburgh
this weekend.
Steel City. So
Mm.
what's the one thing that really stands out to you as we get ready for this week that you're looking for in training camp? As we talked
Waking
about
up
this
tomorrow
week.
morning. I'm taking it day by day.
So you're not ready for
Let's
Thursday
is day
yet.
by day.
No, I don't even know what time the show is tomorrow.
Just like Yanni
It'd be nice
Hakanpää.
to know what time. What time are we on tomorrow?
Well, I'm using my
2.
thing. It's 2:00 tomorrow.
Well, see, I just
2
want the
o'clock.
listeners to know.
Yeah.
2 o'clock tomorrow, and we're in the other room, I think. So
Okay.
Podcast studio
Let's-
tomorrow, and then noon, and
Hey,
then
what about
2
that
Hey.
super? Remember with the big conference
Yeah.
call we had today?
yeah,
Wasn't
look at
there
it right
some
here.
super thing that
Right
we talked
here.
about?
Huey
Super
Wyatt
duper
with our
Mm.
first
super
official.
size.
Do you want to read it?
Huey Wyatt with our first official
Is that
super
Wyatt
chat.
Johnson?
No,
Oh.
that would be
No.
hilarious.
Huey plays on our
Oh.
beer league team. You remember the Pigeons?
Oh
Jane?
my!
Oh,
God.
look at
your
With
team?
beer league.
Super chat $4.99 from Huey Wyatt.
Thank you. You're going to be in history as the first one on the DLLS
So not only does he
Stars
get it,
podcast.
But we're contributing towards maybe getting Sean down here so we can actually do the
Was Huey
swearing
got
trunk photo.
a $5 budget or something? Why
No.
$4.99? Wait, why can't you just say?
Support the
Why
DLS
can't he just say
pizza party.
$5? Why does it got to be $4.99?
$4.99 is the toll
A penny
for Sean
isn't
to get
gonna
up to
help
Frisco.
my bar town.
That's very, very true.
Thank you, Huey. Oh,
Look, we
is
got
that
another one.
Another one. Another one.
Allie girl, super
Allie.
chat,
What's with the
$1.99.
99 stuff?
Allie, thank
okay,
you very
I'll
much.
be first. You guys are doing a great job. She
Okay,
writes
but why
from Allie girl.
is this a financial thing? How can we do $1.99, $4.99? Why didn't you
It's
just
tax-
do $2?
tax-
I,
reasons.
honestly, that's a great question. I don't have the answer to
Tax
that.
reasons.
I
Is it
actually,
where you penny
Owen,
up
we
or
know,
something like that? Where they
Owen, we know the answer. We know the answer. The Stars won the Stanley Cup in 1999. It is important to remind us of that every single day.
All right, jump it up $1 to
Wait,
$5.99.
is that,
Lud.
is
That's
that
you.
seriously it?
No, that's
he's
no
just
way.
making
No,
that
no,
up.
I'm just.
Yeah. Well,
That
oh
would
yeah,
be
Sean.
cool.
Cats,
That would be
says, how
cool.
come somebody's not paying $19.99?
Oh, that'd be a good
If
one.
I knew how
That
to
would
get
be a good
on
one.
that thing,
Yeah.
I'd do $19.99.
I was going to say we're
right
over
now.
time, but after you guys
Yeah.
went 3.5 hours with Razor, I'm not worried about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was worth it, wasn't it?
It was
It
awesome.
was a good show.
It was awesome.
Thank you very much. I think that's it for the day. We as
People already
Luddy
tuned out.
brought up, we will be on the air tomorrow at 2 p.m. Central Time over in the podcast studio. And then noon, 2 and 2, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Friday is a no Luds day because he has a travel day. So Sean will be here for
I'm
that.
gonna go hang with Sid the Kid.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I'm hanging with Sid the Kid. Sorry,
Boy, you
gotta
better
talk
get
about-
some. You better
He
get
better
an
be
interview.
taking me out for a couple beers.
We better
Are
get
you-
some video footage of you guys.
Okay.
We'd love it.
Luds, is your team playing in? Is that the USHL showcase, or is that the
Yes,
same
it
time
is.
in Cranberry
Yeah,
there?
it is.
Okay.
Maybe
Oh.
Sean will show up for that. He's everywhere. He's at every rink in America.
I mean, I'll tell you that. Allie says that's how YouTube sets it up to do the super chat. So it's not them
The
doing the
99.
$4.99.
Yeah,
Ah.
that would
Specific.
make more sense.
It would make
wouldn't
more
just
sense.
dot 00?
Alley
Lud-
girl, get on that.
Lud's last question before we go. I need you to report back next week. Pittsburgh or New Jersey? Which one's nicer?
I think he already has an answer, but
I mean, I have an answer, but it's not what you think.
If Froggies was still there, I'd say Pittsburgh. So, do you mean what are we talking about?
Nicer city,
Oh,
nicer area.
okay.
I've been to
have
Pittsburgh a
report
lot.
back.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
have to report back because
Report
I don't
back.
even know where we're staying.
Report back.
Sean, we appreciate all the insights from Travers. It's getting us more excited for training camp, and we will see you later this week. There's his cartoon. He can't.
Finally.
He has no
Finally.
emotions in that.
Finally have a cartoon. Finally have
right.
a cartoon.
I feel like you're really part of the show now, right?
I mean, it's better than me just going and like.
We have a hard time wrapping up
there-
around here, don't we?
I just want to keep
There we
going.
go.
I know.
It's
We're
fun.
having fun. Hey, we're the start of week 4. We're closing in on a month of our Dallas Stars DLLS podcast. So for Sean, for Luds, for Sam, for our producer John Anderson, I'm Owen. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow at 2 Central Time, right here on at DLLS. Don't go anywhere.
We all silly like the mayor.